And Andrew? Hey, good morning, everybody. Mike Hilgers here, Nebraska Attorney General. For those of you on the line after the press conference, at the end, we'll take questions. Please text your question to Suzanne Gage. Her number was on the media release from yesterday and from today. Good morning. Today, our office is announcing a major and unprecedented consumer protection action across the state of Nebraska. And the problem we have around the state is we have retailers who are selling chemicals to kids, THC-containing products, to children and to Nebraskans around the state. These are mislabeled, they are untested, they are dangerous. So let me give everyone a little bit of context as to what we're talking about. So there are a lot of different THC chemicals. I'm going to focus primarily on Delta 8. We know Delta 8 is a bad chemical, it's a bad drug, and it hurts people. And we know that from a lot of different data sources. I'll just give you a few examples. We know from the federal adverse reporting site where people put in any negative impact of having a particular drug, and from national poison centers that the outcome of taking these particular chemicals. So, for instance, this Delta 8 can cause things like can cause people to hallucinate, can cause respiratory problems, can cause loss of consciousness, can cause depression, can cause anxiety. In particular, when it's vaped and used with vitamin E laced in vaping, it actually can cause loss of life. We also know from the National Poison Center that over 2,000 reports of people being poisoned from ingesting Delta 8 have been reported, and we know that 82% of those reports are for children. We also know that, to put this a little bit into context, that it only takes, in some cases, as little as 2.5 milligrams of Delta 8 to send a child as young as the age of 3 to the hospital. This product is so bad that it is actually illegal in states that have legalized even recreational marijuana. So if you go to Colorado, or if you go to Oregon, or if you go to the state of Washington, you might be able to buy recreational marijuana. You cannot buy Delta 8 products. What we're seeing in Nebraska is that Nebraska has become a dumping ground for these types of products here in this state. And I'm going to show you some of the things that we've seen. These products are targeting children. You can see, as one example, on one side, and if for someone who isn't looking very, very, very closely, one of these is actually a legitimate product that any child could have, and another one is infused with Delta 8. You can see that they have taken the trademark. They even have the share pouch on each side. These are gummies that would be indistinguishable even to an adult, and let alone a child. Here's another example. Here we have Frito chips. If you are not paying very close attention, you wouldn't know which one is actually a legitimate snack and which one is infused with Delta 8 or THC. By the way, these pictures will be posted on our website, ago.nebraska.gov, with actual arrows, information for parents and for children to know which type of product is legitimate and which one is not. Here's a third example. This is a Rice Krispies treat. One of these is legitimate and one of them is not. These are just three very blatant, but only three examples of what we have seen around the state of Nebraska, that these products are being sold to entice children, and they're targeting children and selling these products. We've also seen that the labeling, we'll talk about this in a second, has been that these are totally mislabeled in almost every respect. The ingredients aren't correct, the potency is not correct. No one buying these products has any real understanding what it is that they are getting. The last thing, before we talk about our investigation, is that Delta 8 is something that cannot be produced in commercial quantities through just natural means. Minuscule amounts of Delta 8 might exist in a cannabis plant, but the quantities that we're talking about here, in order to have enough Delta 8, say, in this particular Rice Krispie treat, you might have to have up to 55,000 pounds of cannabis to create to extract enough Delta 8 to be able to produce enough for just this one Rice Krispie treat. So what we're seeing is the way that they are creating these products is through synthetic means, and as part of that, they are actually injecting known industrial solvents or carcinogens like benzene into this manufacturing process, which has created all sorts of other chemicals and follow-ons that actually will show up in these products that you'll see. So what have we done? Our office, shortly after I took office, we started a month-long investigation. It was statewide. We ultimately tested over 100 products from stores that are being sold on the ground around the state of Nebraska. I'll give you a very alarming stat. There is, of the products we tested, only about 15% were accurate for both potency and ingredients. So what does that mean? That means, for instance, they might say on a packaging, we saw all types of mislabeling. It might say that as an ingredient, it might say that it doesn't have Delta 9. It might say it has Delta 8, but it would in fact have Delta 9 or some other THC like THCO. Or it might mislabel the potency. It might say there's 30 milligrams of Delta 8 when in fact there might have been 300. 15%, in a world in which Nebraskans should expect, rightfully, that their product ingredients and packages are 100% accurate. We're not talking about 90% accurate. We're not talking about 70% accuracy. We're talking about 15%. It's a game of Russian roulette that Nebraskans are losing. We also saw, as I mentioned earlier, 2.5, put this in context, 2.5 milligrams of Delta 8 is enough, in some cases, to send a 3-year-old child to the hospital. We found Delta 8 products that had 700 milligrams. 700 milligrams of Delta 8. Routinely, they were in the hundreds. Of course, they were mislabeled, but 700 milligrams is unconscionable, and it's appalling. We also found, I mentioned some of the other things that we found as part of this, this manufacturing process. We found heavy metals. We found mold. We found ethanol. We found acetone. Byproducts from however these products were put together, none of which should be in anything that's safe to consume for Nebraskans. So we are taking action today, and I will tell you what our office is doing. This morning we filed an unprecedented series of lawsuits across the state of Nebraska asserting our Consumer Protection Authority in the state. We filed 10 lawsuits, including the eastern part of the state, all the way west, including Scottsbluff, Keith County, and others. This will be in your media packet, the full list. We also are issuing a series of consumer warnings. Parents need to understand the danger of their children consuming these products. Kids need to understand the danger. School administrators, members of the community need to understand these are not safe. We have Halloween around the corner. We understand kids are going to be eating more candy than normal. These are not safe. These are not safe. We also, as you can see from some of the examples that I had, the 2 previous boards, you could see those were ripoffs. Those were lookalikes. They were copycats. We have sent letters today to the companies that produce the legitimate products. They have trademark rights in those products. Those are valuable brands. And I don't think those companies would like to know that people are ripping off their brands and their trademarks in a way that puts Nebraska children at risk. So we've asked them for their help. We've made them aware of the trademark infringement that we've seen. We understand how important it is for them to enforce their brand, for the value of their brands, and so we expect and hope that they will help us join us in this effort to help protect Nebraskans. So at the end of the day, here's our message to everyone. To those who are selling these products, they need to stop. This is putting Nebraskans at risk. It's putting Nebraska children, most importantly, at risk. To those, and we've seen some of these stores, people see them when they're driving around. Those are storefronts that are working with landlords or banks or other maybe legitimate companies, and we would just tell them to make sure you know your customer and that you are not recklessly or knowingly putting Nebraska children's lives at risk or their health at risk. We want to make very clear to parents how important of an issue this is. And that these types of products are not safe, they are not healthy, they are not good for their children, and please keep them away from their kids. And we also want to, as I mentioned, reach out to the companies that are having their brands infringed, and we ask them for their help, and others who are joining us in this fight to make sure that Nebraskans are kept safe from these awful products.